Hi, I'm Tree and this is Stitchless TV, and today we're going to make a batwing dress. Okay, you need some gorgeous material like this. This fabric I got from an African fabric shop in Shepherd's Bush, and I've got 2.20 meters. You fold it over, and then you've got to fold it over again because you need to find out where the centre is. So I'm folding that over again and lining up the edge. Okay, and I'm just going to make a little mark with my chalk for where the centre is. There. And you've got to get an old t-shirt. I've just got this t-shirt that I know when it's stretched fits me around the hips. So remember that when it's stretched it fits you around the hips, so you're going to have to allow for that. And then you need to put that t-shirt on this fabric here, fold it over like that, and so remember that t-shirt stretched a little bit, so put it a little bit away from the fold. And that's just going to be your guide, okay? And then you're going to start drawing. So that will be the armhole there. I'm going to come along like that. I'm going to arch it a bit like that. And then I'm going to come down with the seam allowance. And I'm going to go straight down to the bottom like that. And then, to be on the safe side, you need to measure your hips, which I'm going to do in secret. Okay, and then fold that over, and then fold it over again, because we've got this fabric folded, and make sure that your hips are actually going to fit in, because otherwise you're not going to wear it. Now I can see that there isn't enough room there, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to redraw that line. So it's going to be a little bit wider, and I'm going to carry on all the way down to the bottom. Now, what we're going to do now is we're going to have a look and see how long we're going to have it. So I'm going to measure from my shoulder, going right down to see how long I'm going to have it. Now, I've only got a little bit of material, so I'm actually just going to be determined, it's going to be determined by my length of material. So let me see. I measure from the shoulder there, going down. So I think I can have mine 105 long. So I'm going to draw along where the hem's going to be. And I'm going to cut that out. So I've cut this out, take away the fabric that you don't need anymore, and take away the t-shirt. And now what you want to do, you want to work out how wide you want your neck to be. But first of all, what I'm going to do, if you have a look down here, I'm going to put a little notch here. And now that notch is going to be quite important, because that's going to signify where the centre back and the centre front is. Now it's really important that you do a notch to show where the centre back and the centre front is for when we do the neck. So if you come down here and have a look, okay, so I've got it all folded still, and I'm just going to put a little notch for the centre back and the centre front. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to open it out very carefully. I'm going to open it all out, and we've got that notch there, and make sure everything's all flat. And now I'm going to measure my neck to see how wide I want it to be. I might need to go to the mirror for that, so let's see. Okay, I think 10 is probably, inches, sorry I keep doing inches all the time. 25 centimetres will probably be okay. So I basically translate that over here, 25, and line it up like that. So 25, and just roughly with chalk, just roughly draw out a shape for the neck. Now you can change it later on, so don't worry about it. So we're going to cut that shape out. Now, do you remember in previous tutorials I always talk about the front of a neck is always slightly more dipped down than the back. So we're going to reshape that now. So I'm going to do the front, coming down just a little, even if it is a slash neck, I'm just going to make it come down just a little bit more like that at the front. Otherwise your dress will strangle you. Now with my fabric out, I've noticed that the neck has got a bit of a sharp corner on it. So if you come and look down here, see this corner, it's a little bit too sharp. So I want to round it off a little bit because that's going to look a bit silly. So I'm just going to come round just a tiny bit like this, coming all the way down, just to sort of round off the corner there so it's not so sharp. So we've got to find out how much ribbing we're going to need. So to do that, we get this ribbing and we find a starting point, and we're going to stretch, go around, stretch, go around. So you do that going all the way round to find out how much you're going to need. So I'm just sort of doing it roughly. There's a lot of play in ribbing. So to the other side. Okay, so I think I started about there. And then I'm going to cut that. Open out your ribbing like that, and we're going to join them together along there. So this is what we've done. So we've just stitched up the ribbing like that. I'm going to open it out, open the side, open the seam, fold it over like that. So that now is ready to use. But we've got to find the centre back and the centre front and the sides, because it just makes it easier for you to sew. So I'm going to fold it over. So I'm folding it over, and the reason why I'm doing that is because I'm trying to find halfway round so I can line it up the centre back and the centre front. So I've put little notches in there. Now I'm going to fold over the material. So if you come and look at the material, I'm folding it over, folding over the neck, and I'm going to put a notch for the front and a little notch to signify the back, and then open it out. Now when I sew it on the sewing machine, fold this over again. Do you know what? It might be a good idea to press this. I think I'm just going to go to the iron and press it. We're going to press this ribbing because it would be much easier to work with if we press it. So if you come and have a look, I've folded it over. I'm not stretching it. I'm just pressing it, just so it helps it keep into place. But try not to make it go all ski-whiffy. And then it's ready to use on the dress. So now we're ready to attach the ribbing. We're going to line up the centre back on the dress with the back of my ribbing, and I'm going to make sure that the front goes onto the front of the dress there. So we'll take it to the sewing machine. Now remember, if you're doing a job that seems to be quite tricky, you can just do it in quarters or you can do it in halves. You don't need to go all the way round. I've got my centre back of the ribbing here, and you can't see, but there's a notch there representing the centre back of the dress. So I'm going to start sewing, and as I sew I'm going to stretch my ribbing but not the dress, and I'm going to be aware of the notch, which is supposed to be in line with the notch on the neck at the front. So off we go. So my stitch is on number 3. I'm sewing fairly close to the edge. I just want to say something about when you go around the bend. I don't mean like bonkers bend, the bend on the neck. When you go around the bend, you've got to really extra stretch the ribbing when you go around the bend. If you just come and have a look. So I'm going around here and I'm really stretching it as it goes round the bend there. at the same time as being aware of how much distance I've got left and how much I need to stretch, but I seem to be doing okay, so I don't need to stretch the ribbing too much. So this is what we've got so far. If you have a look, we've got this lovely ribbing on here, but you can see how it's pulling, but that will all be pressed out afterwards. But before we do anything else, we're going to zigzag the edge so it's all nicely finished off. So now we've got to press it. Never underestimate the iron. Never underestimate the iron, okay? Look, at the moment, it's all sort of puckered and it doesn't look like anything at all, like it doesn't belong there. But if you start pressing it, if you get your steam on, if you start pressing it, and as you press you stretch the ribbing, and it is a bit like magic, you know. Look at that, look how lovely and smooth that is. So you do it all the way round, you've got to do it on the sides as well. Now when you do it on the sides, let it just fall in, look how it just falls in there. God, I love ribbing. And then do the same around the back. Okay, and I'm going to do the same on the other side here. Right, now in this situation, like I've got here, it looks like I've got too much ribbing, but just stretch, look, I'm pulling the fabric, and as I pull the fabric, I'm steaming the ribbing, and look, it is fantastic ribbing, look, it's all smoothed out. I'm going to do the same on the other side now. So we finished doing the neck, and before we fold this over to start stitching around here for the dress, we've got to hem the sleeves. It's much easier if we hem around the sleeves first. Now whenever you do hems, it's a really good idea just to press them in position first and then stitch them on the sewing machine. Because we've got a finished off edge, because I took it right to the edge of the fabric, I only need to hem it once. So I'm just going to hem it first. Okay, I'd just like to say that today my sister's filming today, so I'm not myself. And I think a minute ago I just said, before you hem it, you have to hem it. And what I meant to say was, before you hem it, you have to press it. So come and have a look. Look what we do. If you press whatever it is that you're going to hem first, it just makes it so much easier to sew. And when you do sew, you don't sew that way round, which is the way most people do it. I know it sounds really strange, but you sew that way round, and you can sort of feel the ridge of where the fabric edge is, so you won't go off the edge. It will be easy to sew in a straight line. So we've hemmed our sleeves on both sides, and now we've got this great big piece of material which is going to be folded over, and you match up the hems. So we folded it over right sides together, so basically we're going to end up with something like this. But I want it to have slits up the side for two reasons. First of all, it will be too narrow to walk in, so you actually won't be able to walk. But also, just to sort of break it up, because otherwise it's too much of a solid kind of pattern. I feel like I'll be in a sack. In order to do that, I have to work out how long I want my slits to be. So here's my tape measure. I think, so we'd measure up from the hem. Okay, 49. So it's going to be about that long. I think 49 will be fine. So 49 up, I need my chalk. I'm just going to mark with a chalk where it's going to go. So put mark there. And put a mark there. What we're going to do, we're going to hem up the side seams like this, if you have a look. What we're going to do, before we stitch anything up, we're going to hem up the side seams. So I'm going to press it once, and I'm going to press it again, and then I'm going to stitch that on the machine. And I'm going to do it to every single side seam up to where I've made that mark with the chalk. Now, when we're doing the hems for the slits up the side, it's a good idea to do the hem of the actual dress first. Now, look at the technique that I use for doing hems. I first of all press the fabric once. My big tree tip is Bondaweb. Bondaweb. Whenever I do any sort of hems, or if I need something to stay in place, I don't use pins and I don't use tacking. I use Bondaweb. So effectively I glue it into place and then it's an absolute dream to sew. So for doing this hem here, if you come and have a look, I'm going to fold it again and I'm going to press it in position with the iron with lots of steam. So I'm going to go along, steam, steam. And then, once it's in position, I'm going to get my Bondaweb and just sort of trap it in there, going all the way along. You've got to be really careful not to get it on your iron or your ironing board. Whoops. And then if you do that, look. It just holds it in place, so it's just brilliant for sewing. Now, you need to turn your fabric around. Now remember we made that mark with the chalk, which I can just about make out. I've been better off making a notch. So that's as far as I'm going to go with my slits. So I'm going to start folding, doing the same as I did on the bottom hem. I've just mitered that there because it was too much fabric. I'm going to start folding again. So we're folding twice and we're going to steam with the iron. So we do it once, coming up to where that notch was. And then I'm going to fold it again. Coming up to where the notch was. And then I'm going to put more Bondaweb in there as well. Right, so this is what we've got. We've pressed and we've bonded all the way along the side, all the way along the hem, and all the way up the other side. So look. So when we sew on the other side, you can see the ridge, so you can see where you're going to go, and it's just going to look really, really neat. So this is what we've ended up with. We've got hemmed side, hemmed hem, and hemmed other side. So if you have a look how neat it is. See, because we used the Bondaweb before we sewed, nothing slips around. It's really, really great. Now we're going to start sewing now from the cuff here. Have you got a picture of that? So look, we're going to come from the cuff here, we're going to come all the way around, and we're going to go as close as we possibly can. If you have a look here, we're going to open up this as close as we possibly can to this open slit here. So when you sew, make sure that they're as lined up as they possibly can be and try not to make them slip. Remember your seam allowance. Backwards and forwards and off you go. I just want to show you something just as I approach the split. Now, you need to make sure that when you sew your seam that it comes in line with that along there, but there's no way of you knowing that. So what I usually do is I'm lining them up like that and I'm scoring. I'm able to do this with my finger. If you can't do it with your finger, do it with the iron. I'm scoring with my nail, which creates like a, look, can you see that? It's created like a little bit of a line there as if I've pressed it. So I know that if I stitch along that line, hopefully it will be in line with the edge of where the fold is on the hem. So we stitched up both of the side seams from the arm down, and now we're going to have to finish off, so we're going to have to zigzag. Now I'm going to zigzag all of this all together, but before we do that, this needs to be zigzagged open, and I'll explain to you why afterwards. So I'm going to zigzag this separate, zigzag that to there, then I'm going to close it, and then I'm going to do it all in one and do the same on the other side. Now when you're zigzagging, I forgot to say that when you get to the cuff, you need to mitre it. Come and have a look. Okay, look, you need to mitre. I'm on the cuff, I'm coming to the end, but you need to just mitre that and then zigzag to the edge like that. So you come all the way down and then come in and finish there. So this is all the zigzagging here. Now this is the bit that I was talking about. You need to leave it open, okay? So we zigzagged here, if you have a look, on one side and then the other side, and then we did the zigzagging with them both together, because I need that open, because now we're going to press that open there so that we can continue the stitching, come across and then go down on the other side. So I'm going to do that at the iron now. I'm pressing open this seam here so that it's ready for me to continue the stitching of the hemmed side, and then I'm going to come across here and then I'm going to go down there. So if I just say that again, I'm coming up, I'm going to go across and I'm going to go down on the sewing machine, but I've pressed it open first. So line up your needle with the stitch line and you're going to come up, you go backwards and forwards actually first, come up. Now that's where your slit finishes, and then turn your fabric. Okay, and now we need to stitch past that slit, not only to strengthen it but also to make it look neat. I go backwards and forwards where the actual slit was, and then I'm going to come down on that other side. So I'm going to come down on the other side now. And look, it looks kind of neat, doesn't it? So that looks really neat. So then do the same on the other side. So I finished both of those sides. If you want to come and have a look, they look really neat. Come and see how neat they look. I finished both of those sides. So that's one side and the other side. Okay, so I've pressed it. So we end up with this, but it doesn't look much like this, okay? So I'm going to try it on, and I'm going to try it on with the belt. Now I think to get the look, it's a good idea to wear it, take my measure off, to wear it with a long sleeve top underneath, and even better if it's kind of like a clashing top or a more decorative top. Now if you want to come round and come and have a look. So first of all, I think I'm going to try it with the black belt, because I've got like this black thing coming out here. Wow, look at that. That is really, really good. Wowee, hang on. So I'm going to tie it like this and see what it looks like. Do a double tie there. Oh wow, look at that. What do you think about that? Look, and because of the slits, I can very casually put my hands in my pockets like that. Oh, I really like that a lot. That was great.